I'm Lily Pan with Green Legal Video, 549 North 6th Avenue, Tucson, Arizona. The court reporter is Barbara Broderick with Myers, Linnea and Associates, 100 North Stone, Tucson, Arizona. This is the videotape deposition of Brad Nelson in the matter of Democratic Party of Pima County versus Pima County Board of Supervisors et al., case number C20070516. The deposition is being held in the offices of Risner and Graham at 100 North Stone, Suite 901, Tucson, Arizona, on February 28, 2007. The time now is 9:25 a.m. Will everyone present now introduce themselves, and then the court reporter will swear in the witness.
Yeah, Bill Risner, attorney for Plaintiff Democratic Party.
Jim March, technical advisor of the Arizona Democratic Party.
Karen Fryer, representing Pima County Board of Supervisors and Pima County Treasurer, and with me is co-counsel Thomas A. Denker.
Brad Nelson, Pima County Elections Director.
Raise your right hand, please.
Shall I stand? Or?
Do you swear the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Ms. Nelson, have you had your deposition taken on any other occasion?
No.
Okay. I assume you've had a chance to talk with your lawyer about the deposition rules?
Yes.
Okay. What I would like to make clear is that you can take a break anytime you want. I'm trying to get information, not to ask trick questions. If you don't understand my question, please ask me to rephrase it, if you would. All right?
Yes.
Probably the key problem for deponents is in ordinary conversation we do uh-huhs and uh-uhs and shake our heads. Because of the nature of a written transcript, you'll need to audibly answer questions. All right?
I'll do my best.
You know Dr. Tom Bryan, do you not?
Yes, I do.
And you know Bill Risner, your questioner.
Yes, I do.
Do you recall having lunch with Dr. Ryan and Bill Risner at the, I believe it's the Hilton East Hotel?
Yes, I do.
And that was on a day that you were teaching classes for poll watchers. Would that be correct?
Poll workers.
Poll workers, yeah. Can you recall if that was before the general election or before the primary election that year?
I believe, if my recall is correctly, we're talking about 2004. Is that true?
2004, yes.
I can't remember before which election.
Okay. Do you recall that Tom Ryan had two suggestions for increased security relating to the counting of early ballots?
I cannot remember the specifics of the conversation.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can refresh your recollection. Do you recall that, well, let's see, let's get a little background. At that time, was it not the practice after an election to, through some random process, hand count precinct cast ballots in some precinct or some precincts?
Objection.
To verify if the machine reported count matched the hand count?
Objection. Form.
Help me out, am I to continue with my answer? Okay, thank you. That was the practice, yes.
And at that time, there was no similar audit or check of the accuracy of the count of early ballots. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
And you recall that Dr. Tom Ryan made one suggestion, which was whether the early ballots could be segregated by precincts. And that then would enable you to take those early ballots by precinct, combine them with the precinct ballots, hand count them as a check on the accuracy of the final totals.
I know that Dr. Ryan has had that desire. I can't recall whether it was part of that conversation.
Okay. You recall that at that time, your response was that that would require additional personnel to be hired and additional time, and that if Dr. Ryan could get the Board of Supervisors to authorize those expenditures, it would be possible, but it was not part of your planned budget at that time. Does that ring a bell?
It does not.
Okay. You recall next that Dr. Ryan asked if you could take a sample audit batch of, for instance, 400 to 500 early ballots as they were being counted, and print a vote total before and after that batch, so that at a later date that batch could be hand counted as a confirmation of the accuracy of the early ballot counts.
I don't remember that being part of the 2004 conversation that we had.
And the process that I just described in that question, asking if you recall that, is in fact the process that's used now as a result of Senate Bill 1557 that was passed, isn't it?
I would say that's a good description, yes.
And do you recall in that conversation with Dr. Ryan that you said you did not know whether it was possible to get essentially a subtotal of votes before all the early ballots were counted, but that you would check with your technical people to see if that could be done?
I don't remember that being part of that conversation.
And do you recall later that you reported to Dr. Ryan that your technical people said the software did not support the ability to do that?
Objection form?
Do you recall that?
No, I do not.
Let me ask you, were you aware at that meeting that Tom Ryan and Bill Risner were representatives of the Democratic Party in that discussion?
My recall is a little vague, but I believe that you did represent yourself as such.
And let me ask you, prior to that lunch, how many occasions had you met with representatives of the Democratic Party concerning security issues?
Objection form?
I'm not certain what you mean by security issues.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, how many times had you met? Let's just limit it to the question of the accuracy of ballot counting.
My first recall, and I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to pinpoint a date, was when a gentleman, and I hope I'm recalling his name correctly, Gordon Mustang, I believe is his name, and Dr. Tom Ryan came to me, I want to say early 2003. And they had some questions relating to election integrity is the best way that I could describe it.
Actually, later, Gordon Mustang, Tom Ryan, and some others prepared a report for the Pima County Democratic Party concerning certain of the issues similar to what they discussed with you, did they not?
Yes.
And they sent you a copy of that report,
Yes.
correct? Which you read, correct?
Yes, I did.
Do you recall any meetings with representatives of the Democratic Party that talked about the counting of early ballots?
Do you have a specific date, or?
Yeah, just let's say prior to the lunch where you had that discussion with Dr. Ryan and Bill Risner.
I do not recall one.
More or less, early ballots are half of all ballots cast in that time period, and now, would you agree?
Approximately for large turnout elections, yes.
And would you agree at that time there was no checking on the accuracy of the count of early ballots?
Objection, form.
I would say that there were pre- and post-logic accuracy tests that test the program.
So what you're saying is that, if I'm understanding it right, is that before any election, a small number of ballots are run through the machine to see if the machine counted those ballots correctly.
Yes.
And prior to that election, what would be the approximate number of the ballots that would have been run through?
There is the unofficial logic and accuracy test and the official logic and accuracy test. The unofficial logic accuracy test, we meaning Pima County, invite the political parties, Republicans, Democrats, Greens, and Libertarians, to come and pick 40 precincts at their discretion. We give them approximately 10 ballots per precinct. They then retire to perhaps party headquarters, perhaps their homes, mark those ballots. Then they return with those ballots at a given time, all the political party representatives, and we run those cards, the ballots, the test ballots, through precinct level count devices as well as central count devices, and make certain that the tally matches what those party representatives have tallied at their respective homes or party headquarters. That same test then is run post-election period as well. There is an official logic and accuracy test for primary and general elections that includes the participation of the Secretary of State's office as well.
And that testing that you talked about before and after was unrelated to actual ballots counted at an election, correct?
They are the same style of ballots, but they are not the ballots that were cast at an election.
Yeah. And at that time, in fact, prior to 1557, there was no auditing or checking of the accuracy of actual ballots cast. Would you agree?
I agree.
And are you aware that the requirement that was put into law in 1557 was strongly supported and assisted by persons from the Democratic Party in Pima County?
Among others, yes.
What's your knowledge of level of the general election management software known as GEM software of the Depo Corporation?
I've only been with Pima County since 2002. I had not had any experience with GEM's Diebold/Global products prior to that time. When I came here in 2002, was my first environment that I had been operating in. I received some basic, is the way that I would describe it, GEMS training in, I think, early 2002, perhaps early 2003. But I've never operated the machinery. I've never defined an election or anything of that nature.
You said you had received some basic training?
Yes.
Yeah. When was that?
Again, I'm going to be a little sketchy on the time, but I believe it was post-2002 election cycle, so I'm guessing the early half of of calendar year 2003.
And who gave you that training?
This is a Diebold employee. I'm not certain of her title then nor now, nor am I absolutely certain of the spelling of her name, but it is a female by the name of Terry Runyon.
Where was that training?
I'm sorry?
Where was that training?
Here within Pima County.
Can you just sort of generally tell me what kind of training she gave you?
Again, it's been 5 years approximately now, and I've never used the training that was provided. One of the things that was a concern to me is that since I was the director, I at least did need to have a rudimentary understanding of the system. I'm not certain whether I still have that, to tell you the truth. But I'm sorry, would you repeat your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I want you to give me a little capsule understanding of the nature of this training.
Oh, I beg your pardon. My understanding, again on recall, is basically how to define an election, set their election parameters. We never counted any ballots or anything of that nature. It was basically how to set up an election.
You know how many hours, over how many days this took?
I want to say it was 2 half days, so approximately 8 hours.
Yeah. And have you received any subsequent training on GEM software?
No.
Does your department rely on the knowledge and expertise of Brian Crane for understanding and operating the GEMS system?
Yes.
What's your understanding of what's called a cards cast report?
Again, my understanding is that a cards cast report can be generated that will show an individual the number of ballots that have been processed at a given period of time.
What's the purpose of a cards cast report?
I suppose there could be multiple, but the name implies to me that, as I mentioned, it tells you how many ballots/cards have been processed through the election.
Okay. And if one looks at a card cast report, it'll tell you how many cards have been processed, but will not tell you where those votes went, who won or lost, or whatever the count is.
That's my understanding.
What's your understanding of a summary report?
My understanding of a summary report, and again, I may be a little shaky on the terminology, but a summary report is an aggregate report as opposed to a precinct-by-precinct report of the election totals for candidates' propositions at a given point in time.
Yeah, but the summary report tells you who's winning or losing, right?
It can, yes.
And it provides information that would be very valuable in a pre-election situation for candidates or whoever's interested in what's on the ballot. Would you agree?
Objection form.
Certainly it is important information, and therefore the law does not allow that information to be released.
Okay. Now, it's an interesting response. You say the law doesn't allow it to be released?
That's correct.
How about produced in the first place?
Not to my knowledge.
So it's something that should not be produced prior to the election. Would you agree?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Tell me, when should it be produced?
Well, certainly there's the, under 1557, there's the requirement to produce those like reports for the various batches that you're doing. So there's the necessity to do those types of reports in that environment.
Okay. So let's stop there. So what you're saying is that as of the general election in 2006, the law required summary reports to be produced as part of the audit batch procedures, correct?
I believe the law doesn't use the term summary reports, but certainly a batch report.
Okay. Well, when those reports were printed and were used in the 2000 general election in compliance with the law, what were they called?
I'm sorry, you just said 2000 election, and I wasn't here in 2000.
2006. The
Okay.
2006 general, when the law required it. What were they called?
I believe within the law they were called the unofficial tally reports.
On the GIM's audit log, to see what activities occurred, what does the GIM's audit log call them?
It is my understanding that it is called a summary report.
Okay. So, as of the general 2006, the audit log would show a summary report printed before and after an audit batch. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Prior to that being the law, what would the why would a summary report be printed after votes were counted?
I do not know.
Are you aware that after you were hired in 2002, that summary reports were printed before Election Day and after early ballots had been processed by your department?
Before Election Day and after early... No, I had not.
You didn't know that?
No, I did not.
Are you aware that in the 2006 RTA election that a summary report of who was winning and losing was printed 5 or 6 days before the election?
No, I was not.
Did you authorize anyone in your department to produce such a report?
At which point in time?
The RTA 2006 May 16 election, prior to that election?
No.
Were you given a copy of any such report?
Not pre-election day.
Have you discussed with John Moffett that summary reports were printed before the election in the RTA election?
I was not aware that the summary reports were produced for that election in a pre-election day fashion until the logs were recently requested by the Democratic Party. That's the first time I became aware that the summary reports had been produced for that election prior to Election Day.
Okay. So, and when were you informed of that?
Basically, it was a review of the logs, if I'm using the correct terminology, that the Democratic Party had requested, I want to say January of this year.
And once you found out that summary report had been printed for the RTA election, did you inquire of your department as to why one had been printed?
No.
You were aware, were you not, of what that election was about?
There was more than the RTA on there, but yes.
Yeah. The RTA involved potential $2 billion of roads to be built over the next 20 years, correct?
Objection form.
Would that be correct?
I can't remember the dollar amount, but it was certainly about transportation.
And you're aware that Ramon Valadez on the Board of Supervisors was the chairman of the RTA committee?
I know he was part of the committee. I don't know his capacity.
Are you aware that the Democratic Party itself supported the passage of the RTA?
I am not.
Are you aware that there was considerable public discussion about whether about that large bond taxation proposition on the ballot?
My exposure to the arguments, both pro and con, were limited mostly to individuals or groups filing arguments that would eventually be reflected in the publicity pamphlet. But yes, there were quite a few people who put arguments within the pamphlet.
This taxation issue of a new sales tax had been voted on several occasions previously and rejected by the public. Would you agree?
It was before my time here, I believe. I believe the last, if you will, transportation election in Pima County was in the late 90s, and I was not here at that time.
So I understand that you weren't here. I'm asking you if you're aware of it.
That they had the election, yes.
That there were several prior votes that the public had voted no on for a similar sales tax relating to transportation.
The only one that I'm aware of, I don't know how far back to go in time, but it was 97, and that did not pass.
Yeah. So, I may have asked this, but I forget the answer. Once you found out that this summary report had been printed several days prior to a very important election, and it contained sensitive information that would have been useful to either party in that election, what efforts did you take to find out who printed that report and why?
Objection form.
As I've mentioned, I did not find out about the generation of the reports until, I believe, January of this year. One of the things that I've discussed with members of my staff is particularly in reflection with the new laws pertaining to the batches of early ballots and things of that nature, is that the need for consistency and to generate reports only when necessary.
Yeah. My question, sir, it's now, you would agree, February 28th today, correct?
Yes.
So my question is, what specific efforts did you take to find out who printed the summary report and why?
I had a discussion with Mr. Crane. I believe Mr. Kelesinskis may have been on staff at that time. My recall of the conversation was that what the purpose of the reports were, and I believe he said to make certain that basically the number of ballots had been tabulated appropriately as early ballots were being tabulated.
And in that conversation, did you utilize your knowledge of the GEM software and point out to your expert that the cards cast report is what is appropriate for that question?
Objection form.
The discussion that we had briefly would have been along those lines, that a cards cast report would likely tell him or an operator of the equipment the information one needed to know in a pre-election day environment.
Right. And when you pointed out to him. He obviously is quite familiar with the cards cast reports, correct?
I'm not certain how he would describe his knowledge.
And did he have a response as to why a summary report was printed as opposed to a cards cast report?
I don't recall his response.
Okay. Did Brian Crane admit that he was the person who had printed the summary report for the RTA?
I don't know whether we ever designated who actually operated the equipment to generate that report.
Would you have considered the printing of that report to have been a violation of your procedures?
No.
Why not?
There's nothing, to my knowledge, that is contrary to procedures that forbids one to generate that report. So certainly there may have been a different report that would have accomplished the same goal, but the generation of the report by itself was not improper.
Yeah. And how about today? Would that be improper with your procedures?
With the procedures that are still evolving, they would be improper.
Yeah. You say the procedures that are still evolving?
Right.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, certainly we are hoping in a post-election environment after this most recent general election that all of the players, the political parties, everybody else can get together and say, let's talk about what worked and what didn't and where we need to tighten here and loosen there. So elections are never final. The procedures are always up for evaluation.
So are you saying that in the future it might be against the rules, but as of today it's not?
Well, certainly it's not against the rules right now. In rules mean anything written. I have informed Mr. Crane that in the future, and I think it was actually at his own response, that he will only be doing cards cast in the future in a pre-election environment.
Yeah. Are you... If I understood you, you quite clearly said that the printing of a detailed summary report that contains vote totals, who's winning or losing an election, pre-election, was not a violation of your rules or procedures.
That's correct.
And that information could be used to project the outcome of an ultimate election, could it not?
Only if it were released.
Yeah. That information, let me ask that question again, could be used to project the outcome of an election, could it not?
Objection form.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. Well, you don't know?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, you said if it was released, it could. If it was released, how could a person do it?
Here's an assumption on my part, I suppose, and that is that elections, the processing of early ballots takes place approximately 2 weeks prior to Election Day. Certainly that information is critical, vital, needs to remain in confidence, but the release of the information is against the law, and were it released, the law would hopefully take impact on the individuals concerned.
Okay. So what you're saying is if someone released it and got caught at it, that would be illegal.
Yes.
If it was not released and it was done for the purpose of projecting an election, that also would be illegal, wouldn't it?
Objection form.
If it's, I'm not certain I follow your question.
Yeah, let's say someone looks to see this person's winning by 8 percentage points. This election is within 2 percentage points, whatever. If that's for the purpose of projecting who's going to win or lose that election, that's illegal, isn't it?
Objection form.
I believe so.
Yeah, it's a felony, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm not certain whether it's a felony or not, but it's certainly illegal.
And can you think of any correct, legitimate reason to print a summary report pre-election day, and please exclude the 1557 situation as of the general of 2006?
In that there is no prohibition within the law, a person could generate those reports prior to election day at this time.
That's not my question.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
My question was, can you think of any legitimate reason within the operation of the GEM software to print a summary report pre-election?
When you said legitimate, I immediately went to thinking of the legalities involved. And there may be a necessity to be able to generate a report to see how the ballots are being processed.
Yes, but you know that the software has that provision, and it's called a cards cast report, correct?
That's my understanding.
And would there be anything about a cards cast report that would not accomplish what you say needs to be done?
Objection form.
If one is trying to attempt to find out how many ballots have been processed through a machine, a cards cast report should be sufficient.
Okay. What additional information would legitimately be needed for the printing of a summary report?
In that I have never operated GEMS, I don't know how to answer that question.
And would you agree that the software that's used, the GEM software, does not identify the person that operates the computer?
I don't know that for a fact.
Are you saying that as of today, you don't know that?
Again, I don't know all of the security arrangements that allow one to get to GEMS. I know some of them, but not all of them. But my understanding is that when one signs on to GEMS, there's nothing that denotes that's person A or that's person B.
Right.
Yeah.
So you do know. I thought you said you didn't know.
Perhaps I misunderstood.
Your GEM software, if you look back to see what activity has occurred, can't tell you which person operated the machine.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
So if a report's printed that was not proper to be printed, you can't find out by looking at the computer, can you?
Correct.
I ask about the printing of a summary report. Can you think of a legitimate reason why someone would peek and just look to see who's winning and losing and not printing anything out?
Form.
I'm not certain. Having never operated GEMS, I'm not certain what exactly is part of a preview.
Yeah. Well, when the Democratic Party requested the logs and you looked at them, did you note that there were print previews listed?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you ask anyone what that was about?
I think I had it explained to me that it is, and I may be getting this wrong, it's similar to being on your word processor at your computer and you're looking at your document but have not yet pushed the button to print. But I'm not certain what information is reflected there.
And are you aware that there were previews when nothing was printed?
I don't know that for a fact.
There was an article in last week's Tucson Weekly, and say last week it was a February 15 to 21, 2007 edition, and you're let me give you a copy of the article. Hey, did you read that article?
I did.
And in the second paragraph, there's a topic about extra summary reports printed at a time that didn't match records kept by party observers in the 2006 general election.
I'm looking from the top of the article, and the second paragraph doesn't seem to say that.
Yeah, I misspoke.
Okay.
I meant second column.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Okay. Are we talking about here?
Yes, I think that's probably underlined in yellow, and it says, Nelson says, you want to go ahead and read there?
I'll read what you have highlighted here. It says, Nelson says he's not sure what happened in those cases, but he suspects that in one case, a report may have been printed before electronic files were compressed to make sure there would be a backup if something went haywire with the procedure.
So make sure I understand you. You're saying that a summary report may have been printed before some files were compressed.
I was not physically there. I think Dr. Ryan may have been. I may be misspeaking there, but this compression, if that is indeed the correct term to use, I was not in the building when it was taking place.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay.
But my question, I'm trying to figure out what you're saying.
Okay.
Are you saying that a summary report was printed because some data was being compressed? Is that what that says? Or is that what you said?
I believe what I was telling the reporter is that one of the reports may have been in conjunction with that compression.
And we're talking about a summary report.
I assume so.
And why would data have been compressed?
Again, I was not physically there, so I don't know, and I'm not certain really what compression is.
And has anyone in your staff told you that a summary report was needed to be printed because they were compressing data?
No.
Where'd you come up with that?
My understanding is that the request to do the compression was suggested by Dr. Tom Ryan, but what physical paper copy reports may have been generated surrounding that exercise, I'm not certain. There may have been some, but I don't know.
Who told you that Dr. Ryan requested data to be compressed?
I believe Mr. Crane said so.
Excuse me, I might as well mark this as exhibit. I think it's probably 5.
That sounds right, Bill.
Huh?
5 sounds right. I'd like to see it and see a copy of the original, please. That's appended. The original.
Mr. Nelson, in terms of the security of Boat County, would you agree that that's a very important issue?
Yes.
And I'd like to ask you about the role of the Secretary of State. Do they ever come down and check on your security?
There may be questions asked of Mr. Crane and others within the counting center about security, but none have been directed to me.
Has, at least prior to John Moffitt's involvement, has Pima County ever, outside of your department, had someone come in to check on the security?
Not during my tenure.
So, if I got this right, then during your tenure, the security of your department has all primarily been internal. You've not had outsiders come in and audit what you're doing and checking on your security.
That's correct.
What's I want to ask you some questions about your knowledge of potential security problems within the gym system. You told me before that you had received some basic training from a Depo employee, Terry Runyon. What did she tell you about potential security problems with the gym system?
I don't believe it was discussed at all.
Has either Global or Depo, well, by the time you got there, had Depo purchased the
I believe the
election
purchase
system?
happened almost at the same time, so it's been Depo for as long as I've been there.
Okay. Has Depo ever alerted your office to security issues to watch out for?
Objection form.
One moment, please. Not to my knowledge.
A moment ago, we were talking about the software not permitting you to know what individual was operating it. Do you recall those conversations?
Yes.
When did you first learn that that was the case, that we wouldn't know who was operating the computer?
Probably January of this year.
And are you aware that Microsoft Access can be used as essentially a backdoor of GEMS, so that if a computer can be connected to your central count computer, that GEMS can be entered without a password?
Objection form.
I am not technical in any stretch of the imagination, so I know Access exists, but I really don't know what it's capable of doing.
Okay. So, as of today, are you aware that that's the case?
I've read articles pertaining to it, but again, I don't know enough. As I'm reading the article, when it gets into technical stuff, I really don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Well, what's your understanding of how that, would you consider that to be a security problem?
Could you define the question a little bit better? And I'm not certain I understand.
Okay. Well, let me just say, based on the articles you've read and what you know now, how can Microsoft Access be used to go in and change data in your GEMS files?
I don't know enough about the nature of the system to begin to answer. I know there has been some concerns, but...
So you can't articulate or express what that problem is?
No, that's true.
And are you aware of the problem relating to the memory card used in the AccuVote OS counting machines, your
Okay.
optical scanners?
Objection form.
Could you define that a little bit better? What problem are you?
Well, let's start off. Do you know what I mean by memory card?
Within the OS unit, yes.
And OS stands for
Optical scan.
optical scan. And is this the Diebold? Is it called an AccuVote OS machine?
I believe that's correct.
Okay. Do you know what interpretive code is?
No, I do not.
Do you know if interpretive code is permitted under federal law?
Federal law, I do not know.
Do you know if it's permitted in Arizona?
Again, this is not my area of expertise. We operate systems that are certified at the national and state level,
Yeah.
and whether that is part of the review, I don't know.
Have you been informed that the memory cards used in the AccuVote OS machine contains prohibitive interpretive code?
Objection form.
Has anyone ever told you that?
No.
You ever read that?
No.
Okay.
I've read articles pertaining to the memory cards, but I don't know whether it says that there is something improper within the card itself.
Have you read the University of Connecticut report dealing with the Depo optical scan machines?
No.
Are you aware of that report?
No.
Yeah. Let me ask you, is the entire Pima County election counted on optical scan reports or optical scan machines?
No.
Would it be correct that all of the ballots cast at the polling places, other than early ballots, are counted on the debold OS machines?
No.
Okay. And why not?
Some of the ballots cast are provisional ballots and are not tabulated at the precinct, and other individuals have the opportunity to vote on the touchscreen voting device.
Okay. Okay. So the touchscreen devices, there's a small number of votes in the last election on those devices.
Correct.
Correct? How many votes in Pima County?
Approximately 500.
500. And what did that cost per vote? Did you work those figures out?
I did not. I've had individuals inform me it's in the area of $4,000 plus.
Okay. So there's 500 of those votes. There's provisionals. How many, what percentage are we talking about for provisions?
If you allow me an estimate, I want to say that there was probably about between 15,000 and 20,000 provisional ballots cast at the most recent general election.
Okay. And those are counted with the early ballots?
Subject to verification by the county recorder's office, they are actually counted as a separate subset.
Okay. So more or less, what percent of your ballots are cast at precincts and are fed through the optical scan machines at the precincts?
If you'll allow me an estimate, maybe 45%.
Okay. So 45% of the ballots in Pima County, more or less, are counted by the debold AccuVote machines, correct?
Correct.
And you mentioned that you didn't read the University of Connecticut report. Have you read the Princeton report dealing with the touchscreen machines?
If it's the report that I'm most familiar with, the answer is only cursory, because if it's the report that I'm familiar with, it deals with the type of equipment that we do not have presently installed in Pima County.
And I don't look here. See if I can find my.
Can I ask for a refill then?
Phil, can we take a short break while you're
Yeah,
looking?
sure.
Time is 10:23. Is that all correct?